Strange Magic, written by Suzana Thompson, narrated by Sarah Sampino. Chapter 21. Alex answered my frantic call to Caitlin's cell phone. I nearly fell over with relief when I found out that she was alive. I decided that I had to see her right away with my own eyes and told Alex that I was coming over. I called Duncan to go with me to Caitlin's house. He drove in silence until I had finished telling him about Anna's threats.
Do you think she was just trying to scare you?
No. Caitlin was too upset to answer her phone. Something definitely happened. Caitlin met me at the door, and I pulled her into a fierce hug. We both started crying and couldn't even talk for a while. There was already a box of tissues in the living room. Duncan and Alex sat awkwardly and waited for us to calm down. I began with an easy question. "Where's your mom?" "She's on a date. Alex and I were too." "What happened?" I asked. "First, I have to tell you that Alex knows everything," Caitlin said. "After tonight, I couldn't keep it from him anymore. He deserved to know the truth." "I understand. You shouldn't have to lie for me." "Good. Then he can tell you what happened." She gave me a tremulous smile. "I think I'll break down again if I start talking about it." "It's okay. You just take it easy." I hoped that my smile was comforting. Seeing Caitlin this upset made me dread hearing the story. I turned to Alex and waited for him to begin.
Well, Caitlin and I were going for a drive when we saw Anna standing by the side of the road. I figured her car had broken down, and I was going to stop, but Caitlin wouldn't let me. She got upset and said to just keep going, but she wouldn't tell me why. Then the car started going faster. It just kept speeding up, and the brakes wouldn't work. I could barely control it around the curves in the road.
"Oh my God!" I stared at him in horror. He seemed almost as shaken as Caitlin while he told the rest of the story.
We got up to the overlook, and the car kept speeding toward the railing. I thought we were going over.
Caitlin whimpered beside me, and I grabbed her hand.
Then it stopped, at the last minute.
His eyes were haunted by the terror he and Caitlin had felt.
"I'm going to kill Anna."
Duncan exploded out of his seat.
"She really did that?"
Alex looked to me for confirmation. "It's my fault. I didn't take her seriously." "It's not your fault." Caitlin was getting angry now. "She pretended to be our friend, and then she tried to kill us." "She wasn't trying to kill you. It was a warning for me." I told her what Anna had said over the phone. "I'm so sorry that you guys got dragged into this." "She can't get away with it." Caitlin was really fired up now. "She has gotten away with it. I can't be there to protect you all the time, and she knows it. I'm going to give her the crystal." "Susie, you can't do that. You see what she's like. Do you want her to get even more powerful?" Caitlin turned to her boyfriend. "Tell her, Alex."
"She'll be like the Terminator."
"I have no choice. She might actually kill you next time."
"I'm going to call Mom,"
Duncan said. Mrs. McKenna came over right away. She even brought her tea in an attempt to soothe our nerves. It did make me feel better, but I think it was more that she, herself, had a calming presence. Duncan had filled her in on the situation, and we all wanted her opinion. By the expression on Alex's face, I could tell that seeing an adult take this seriously had made him realize that this was all real.
"There was nothing wrong with the car on the way down,"
he said to no one in particular.
"The brakes worked just fine."
Mrs. McKenna gave him a sympathetic look. "It's a lot to take in all at once."
"What should we do, Mom?"
Duncan hadn't touched his tea. He was anxious to take some kind of action. "Suzannah is right that we need to take the crystal to Anna. I should never have taken it in the first place." "But she'll win," Caitlin protested. "It's not a game," Mrs. McKenna said. "It's not worth losing your lives. I'll give the crystal back to Anna." "I think I should be the one to give it back to her," I ventured. "She can't seem to hurt me no matter what she does. We seem to be pretty well matched in power."
"I think I should go with you,"
Duncan said. "No, I might not be able to protect both of us if she tries something."
"I don't want you to go alone."
He wouldn't back down. Mrs. McKenna interrupted our argument. She doesn't have to go alone. There is another way for the two of us to be there for her.
I don't know, Duncan said. I'd still rather be there in person.
I listened to this exchange in confusion. Then it dawned on me what they were talking about. The crystal. If Anna can use it to her advantage, then so can you. Mrs. McKenna looked hopeful, and her voice was tinged with excitement. I wasn't so sure about this plan. But I don't know how to use it. I'll guide you. But it's simple, really. The crystal does all of the work for you, she explained. Caitlin and Duncan switched seats so that he could sit beside me. Mrs. McKenna told me to hold my hands in front of Duncan's chest. Even though we weren't touching, it felt intimate enough to make me blush. Looking into his eyes made me feel as shy as the first day I met him, so I looked down at my hands and saw the shimmer of his aura. Cool! Caitlin exclaimed. The crystal began to glow, and the light it gave off intensified until it was dazzlingly brilliant. The surprised voices of the others faded, and everything else receded into the background. I was enveloped in the energy coming from Duncan. The well was not dry. It ran deeper than even he knew. I felt the strength and the power, and I saw what had been unseen. When I came out of my trance, I saw that the crystal had stopped glowing, and Duncan's aura was no longer visible.
What was that? It didn't do that when I saw Anna use it.
Duncan looked bewildered. Mrs. McKenna nodded. Yes, it's because you gave your power willingly to Suzana. She didn't trick you into it. The more pure the intent, the more powerful the crystal becomes. I was worried about Duncan. Are you okay? I didn't take too much, did I?
I feel fine. What about you?
I feel great, actually, I marveled. Refreshed, like I got lots of sleep. I'm next. Mrs. McKenna shooed Duncan out of the way and sat down beside me. I wasn't sure how to phrase my question. You said that you have to be in love. Mrs. McKenna laughed. It's called the crystal of devotion. The key word is devotion. There are many kinds of love, Susannah. I see what a good person you are, and how much you care for my son. I have grown quite fond of you in the time I've known you. I had become fond of her, too. She had been kind and sincere since the first moment I met her. Unlike Duncan, Mrs. McKenna had never been suspicious of me or my intentions. She was truly a person who judged everyone by their own individual actions. I repeated the same process that I had used with Duncan. The results were the same, and I now felt even stronger. I want to help too. I was touched. That's sweet, Caitlin, but you don't have these abilities. Besides, I don't need any more. She turned to Mrs. McKenna. You told Susie that everybody has these abilities, but most people can't access them. Maybe Susie can access mine. It's a fascinating possibility. We won't know unless she tries. Come on, Susie. It's worth a shot, Caitlin said. Better to have too much power than not enough, especially when you're dealing with Anna. I didn't expect it to work, but it did. I felt myself connect with Caitlin's untapped abilities. They were raw and easily taken. When the transfer was complete, I felt more awake and aware than I ever had before in my life.
You're not going to leave me out.
I know you want to help, Alex, and I know there are all kinds of love, but you hardly know me. There's no way that you love me.
But I love Caitlin, and you're the only one who can protect her from Anna.
Caitlin stood up. You love me?
Well, duh,
Alex said flippantly, but his face was turning red. Caitlin threw her arms around him. I love you too. I couldn't help but smile at this wonderful development. Alex disentangled himself from Caitlin and sat down beside me.
This is the coolest thing I've ever seen.
To my surprise, the crystal worked again. Alex had even more untapped power than Caitlin. When I was done, I felt like I could run a marathon without getting tired. I looked at all of them. Thank you.
Just to be safe,
Duncan said. Instead of calling Anna on the phone, I reached out for her with my mind until I found her. I'm coming over to bring you the crystal. She took a moment to answer. I knew you'd see it my way.